right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the 17th video for Unit 5 for AP Environmental Science, Sustainable Forestry. Now, this is a graphic. I'm going to go through it for you slowly, but the idea here is that we have to understand that forests are the key to global sustainability. Increasing demands on the world's forests is causing us to need more from the forests. We're going to need 3 times as much by 2050 by our demand of wood alone. So in order to meet in a responsible way, forests have to be sustainably managed and used. So you can see here all of the different possible uses of a forest and how we can do it in a way that is sustainable, where we have natural versus semi-natural and all the way to plantation. Now, some of the benefits can range from social benefits, where we cause a mass amount of employment. We also depend on those goods. There are products and energy that we can get, and forests store a lot of that carbon from our atmosphere. There are also biodiversity and water benefits because forests provide multiple water ecosystem services, allowing floods to be controlled, allowing for natural filtration, and protecting watersheds that are sources of water that we drink. So, one of the methods is to mitigate deforestation. One method is reforestation, where we take an area that was deforested and we try to help reforest it. One method that can be done is using and buying wood harvested by ecologically sustainable forestry techniques. If you guys remember that video we watched in class, all about finding wood that is sourced from sustainable forestry techniques, and then reusing wood, recycling wood instead of just throwing it out and using new wood. Something else that can be done to help protect these forests is to protect them from diseases through integrated pest management and selected removal of affected trees. So you can see that in certain species, if there is a disease, using IPM or by removing some of those affected trees, we can help prevent the spread of diseases. Fire management is also a very important factor that has to go into place. We have to understand that fire is a natural process. It helps to cycle the nutrients, because a lot of those nutrients that are in the dead biomass can be recycled now, and it allows for regeneration through allowing early successional species to grow. Now, one thing that we do is we have prescribed burns, which are where we burn the dead biomass, because by doing a small controlled burn, we can prevent larger wildfires that can go out of control. So in 1988, a third of Yellowstone was burned as a prescribed burn to prevent a massive wildfire. Now, in recent history, we are noticing that California wildfires are increasing, and this is caused in part by climate change. As we have more heat and more drought, there is more cases of wildfires. By having more development, it causes more areas to burn faster because there's less to stop the wildfires from spreading. So precipitation here versus the average temperature in California from January through October of every year from 1895 to 2018. And you can see the dark gray circles would be areas that are in the last, in 2000 to 2017. And you can see 2018 on that map, versus more of these being spread out towards the center averages. We are seeing outliers. It's hard to say they're outliers when all of these years are connected in the last 18 years. Now, a lot of California is dry, but might not be in drought. So just because just because a lot of California is in a drought doesn't mean that there aren't going to be fires in areas that aren't in a drought. They're just dry. So the Camp Fire from a year ago, and the Woolsey Fire in Los Angeles, and then this year there's a big fire outside of Los Angeles. A lot of these drought conditions are causing these fires to become larger and more intense. We also can see that there is a lot of dead biomass in California, which can allow for more area to be burned. So the campfire there, you can see in an area where there's a lot of dead trees per acre. Areas that are red, so these are areas that we would consider to be susceptible to wildfire because these are drier and more easily burned trees. Now, in 1969, the National Environmental Policy Act was put in place. It created the EPA, and it mandated the environmental assessment of all projects that involved federal money or permits. So if you wanted to create a project that had federal money or required a federal permit, you had to have an environmental assessment. One of those that exists is the environmental impact statement, where you look at the scope and the purpose of a project. You have to look at the environmental context. You have to look at all of the possible environmental consequences and how you're going to mitigate them. An environmental mitigation plan would then be put in place, which essentially looks at all of those impact issues on the project, and you have to look at how you're going to address them. Now, some of these have to apply protection measures to the Endangered Species Act of 1973, so you have to consider how are you going to protect the species that are endangered, and they always allow for public comments and concerns, which can influence the decisions, but it doesn't always do so. Whenever an environmental impact statement is released, there is a required amount of time that allows for the public to make their own comment. So if you ever see a major construction project that's happening, like the Spaghetti Bowl construction that's coming up, they just finished their environmental process of having their environmental impact statement, where the public is allowed to have their own concerns addressed. And that brings us to the end of Unit 5. If you have any questions, email me, ask me in class. Whatever you need to do to help get more of an understanding of any of these topics, rewatch the videos. I know there's a lot of information here, and I want to make sure that you get it all. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in class.